What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a Thursday edition of Back Your Play with Q. I'm your host, as always, Rich Quinones, at Rich Q on Q, Twitter, IG, and of course, the YouTube channel. And there she is. I wore this for her. Our good friend, Ally Miielnicki, does a great job. Nothing But Locks podcast, part of Zensports, at NBL podcast, at Zensports. And I figured I wanted to wear this just to let you know I was thinking about you. It's blue. It should be a warming, color feeling. And Ally, what the hell happened on Saturday night?
Everything that could have went wrong for the Giants went wrong that opening drive. I had said in my Nothing But Locks podcast, if the Giants want to make a statement, they need to get the ball first. They need to put points on the score, because if they go behind, they're never going to come back in the game. It's not like playing the Vikings. From the second that Jalen Hurts took that team down the field, and it wasn't even so much Jalen Hurts, let's be honest. It was between Kenneth Gainwell and Miles Sanders, just ran all over the defense. There was no stopping them. Daniel Jones could have played the same way he played against the Vikings. They weren't going to keep up with the Eagles scoring. The offensive line, while it looked its best of the season a week prior to the Vikings, looked its worst of the season against the Eagles this past week. I can't even put the blame totally on Daniel Jones. Saquon, besides a 40-yard run, was pretty much a non-factor in that game. I just thought the entire team, including the coaching staff, was so unprepared for this game. I give Brian Daboll credit that he did take part of the blame. He did take most of the blame for it, but I don't think that you could have had a worse showing. But it was still a great season. Yep. I know if you asked me at the beginning of the year if I thought we would get to the playoffs, I would have said I would love to have even a shot at making the playoffs, let alone make the playoffs. So I'm confident we have a great salary cap coming up this year. I think we have like the fifth best cap. I really like to see what we do with the draft. We need to add some linebackers from sure. We need to add some more guys in the secondary. I think we could get some good wide receivers, whether in the late first round, early second round. But I'm very happy going forward.
Yeah, listen, the heart, you can only will a win, so to speak. But it ultimately you have to play the game, the X's and O's. It was a bad matchup. And for me, and I told you this, and I've said it to my guests this week. I mean, I'm doing the fights, a stream coming out of Mexico. So I have Spanish in one ear, English in the other. I have my monitor to my right, and then I have my phone blowing up. And then remember too, when you're watching, say on Xfinity on the Mac, there's like a 30-second delay. My phone's constantly beeping. I'm like, I can't friggin' do this anymore. 14-0. I was like, that's it. The game's over. I wasn't even, to be quite honest, I wasn't upset. Full transparency, I wasn't, because the first series for the Eagles set the tone. And I had no issue with Daboll going for it on 4th and 8. Everyone's getting on the guy. You want to steal possession. You want to steal a series. If that's the case, though, run the ball on 3rd down.
I agree.
And it's apples and oranges. The big question now is, what are they going to do with Daniel Jones? What are they going to do with Saquon Barkley? And I believe they're a little bit of a rock and a hard place. And we'll get to the AFC and NFC championship games for a moment, but I'm not sure if you guys touched on this on the NBL podcast, but this is what happens when you draft running back, quarterback, within 2 to 3 years, top 5, 6, 7 draft picks. You're not going to be able to pay both. So I'm starting to lean towards Saquon. Not if you don't tag him, you let him walk.
Right.
That's kind of where I'm at. But you have to sign Jones, and I'm okay with 25, 26 million. As you mentioned, you shed some salary with some bad contracts, i.e. Kenny Golladay. But ultimately, what do you think they're going to do when you listen to the GM and the head coach speak the day after with Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley?
I think, listen, they both use the word that as a sports fan, I hate to hear business. There is a business side to it. I do think we get a deal done with Daniel Jones. I don't think we're going to place the franchise tag on him. I think that if we place the franchise tag on him and give him another prove it year, it might just create bad blood within the organization. Listen, there's really no one out there that I could say you can go and get a better deal with when it comes to adding in the salary cap. I think if you give Daniel Jones anywhere from 2 to 3 years, I think he'll be happy with that. Let him test the market. I don't think a team is going to go over the board for Daniel Jones in the same way you saw like at the Houston Texans just overpay Brock Osweiler after he had a semi-good season with the Broncos. I actually think we bring Daniel Jones back. Saquon's a little tricky because if you look at Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen when they were with the Bills, they really weren't heavily focused on having that premier running back. So you look at Saquon's history, I don't know if we sign him to a long-term deal or even a short-term deal. I think that if we're going to use the franchise tag, it will be on him, give him another year to stay healthy. And hey, maybe we let him even walk after that year. But Saquon, I don't see a deal going with. I think he's either going to be franchise tagged or we're going to let him walk. And frankly, I love the guy to death. He's one of the heart and souls of the Giants, but I've always had that mindset too, that running backs, they have a short life to them.
Agree.
And you maximize them out and then it's time to build anew. I mean, you can plug, if you have a good offense, if you have a good defense, you could plug anyone in there for running back. And I don't think the Giants have ever really had that premier running back. I mean, you could go back to the Tiki Barber days, but when we won with Eli and everything, we had Eli, we had Plaxico. So I wouldn't mind if Saquon demands a long-term deal, let someone else give it to him.
Yeah, and you're right. And they also did it, as you mentioned, back in the day with the two, to some extent, almost like a three-headed monster with Jacobs and Bradshaw in 7 and then 10 to 11. Good points on that. All right. So AFC, NFC Championship Sunday is set. We'll start with Philadelphia against San Francisco. And right now the line says Eagles 2.5 at home. So let me see if you follow me on this one. The more I read into this game, X's and O's now, not from even a betting standpoint or a line standpoint, the matchup worries me a little bit if you're the 49ers. Christian McCaffrey, he's coming out a lot on third down plays. So if we're thinking about even potential props with him, I'm looking at unders like that. I've seen the 49ers give up some big plays in passing situations, and Jalen Hurts, the scrambling ability. He's healthy. We know that. The RPOs, 2 games, you go back to the Chicago game with Fields and the Atlanta game with Mariota. They were able to move around, scramble, pick up some yardage against the 49ers. And as much as I want to sit here and say Purdy will rise to the occasion, I can't sit there and say he's going to be overwhelmed because this is a big spot for Hurts, but he comes from a different pedigree in college. So those worry me a little bit if I was leaning towards the 49ers on the road with the points. Where are you at right now with this game?
Listen, one thing about Jalen Hurts, and give him credit, he did get his first playoff win last week against the Giants, but he's been known to choke in some of the big games. You saw him last year. He did not do well against the Bucs. I know he was still a little raw last year, but let's not forget, Rich, a few years ago, he got benched at Alabama for Tua in that national championship game. So I'm still waiting for him to have that signature game. And I don't think I've seen it yet. We talked last week how everyone was ripping the Giants because they haven't had that signature win. They bashed the Vikings at not having a good defense. They bashed the Jaguars of not really being there. Some of the Giants' bigger wins. Well, who really have the Eagles beaten this season besides the same teams that the Giants beat? Maybe they beat the Cowboys once, but let's not forget that was when Cooper Rush was the quarterback. This is the biggest game that the Eagles are going to have to face all year, and primarily the best defense in the league. San Francisco has the number 1 run defense in the league, the number 1 pass defense in the leagues. I think they rattle Hurts. I know that the Eagles' offensive line is number 1 in the game, but I don't think they've seen a front 7 all year that's equivalent to the 49ers front 7. I would even take the 49ers front 7 over the Cowboys front 7. I think they rattle Hurts. I think they force some turnovers. That's another prop up I like. Hurts to have a turnover. Right now it's 0.0. I take the over on that for sure to have an interception. I really think that the Niners will have this game figured out. I love Kyle Shanahan as a coach. I think he'll devise a good game plan. And let's not forget, they probably had the defensive coordinator of the year, DeMeco Ryan, coaching them. He's going to find a way to get to Hurts. He has the head coaching job in his future. I really like San Francisco in this situation.
I mean, I think Hurts has silenced a lot of critics. I think his game against Tennessee, with his legs, with his arm close to 400 yards. I watched enough of this kid where I'm a fan of his. I like the way he carries himself. I like his demeanor, and I think he's talented. And I think a lot of people question the selection because we were talking about Carson Wentz, and here you go. Well, it didn't pan out. And once again, the Eagles made the right decision, because this is what these GMs and these ownership groups are, they're paid to do, to figure it out. I think he rises to the occasion. I do. And it's not even about, it pains me. I have to call it the way I see it. The film doesn't lie. Purdy, to me, great story. You almost have to say, when does the other shoe drop though, right? 8 wins in a row, 9 wins, 10, 11, 12, hostile environment, the matchups of Brown, Smith, the fact that they can run the ball. Now, to your point, if the 49ers run defense can stymie them a little bit, and maybe you start to roll him out, you flush him out of the pocket, he's prone to make that mistake, the decision-making here and there. But man, let's not sell short that Philadelphia Eagles defense, the corners, the secondary, the pass rush. I think they're going to be able to get to Purdy a little bit. If this is a fourth quarter game, who do you give the edge to?
I would still give it to the 49ers. I mean, you talk about when's the ball going to drop for the Niners. How many years did it take for the ball to drop with Tom Brady, who was a 6th round pick in the Patriots? I'm not saying Brock Purdy's the next Tom Brady, but this kid's done nothing but impress me since he came up. I followed him a lot in his Iowa days back when I was with Fox Sports. I did a lot of his highlights. I think this kid has a little shades of Joe Cool in him, Joe Burrow. I think he performs very well under pressure. He was tested last week by the Dallas defense. That's right up there as a top 5 defense in the league. He held his own. He did look shaky a bit in the first half, but he came back. He made the throws he needed to. And the X factor to me in this game is actually going to be Deebo Samuel for the 49ers. Christian McCaffrey was a little banged up. He's been a little banged up in practice. I think you need to take the pressure off McCaffrey. You need to get Deebo back in the mix. You need to run some trick plays, utilizing him, utilizing even Elijah Mitchell in this situation. So I think Deebo is going to be an X factor. And that's another prop I like, for Deebo to be an anytime touchdown scorer. Right now it's looking to be about plus 170. You can get that for. But I think for the 49ers offense, Deebo is definitely the X factor.
That's a good point that you illustrated and highlighted. Bubble screens, get the ball in his hand, 15, 20 plus touches. You mentioned CMC dealing with obviously an injury. I look at his touches, any type of player props, I'm probably leaning under, because I just don't think he's going to have that major impact that we think he's going to have. That's just me. Purdy, I don't know if you have it in front of you, passing yardage. I think this is a grind it out, muck it out kind of game. That
I'm definitely taking the under in this one.
Yeah, I would too. And I also think, your worst case scenario for the 49ers is exactly what happened the other night for the Giants. The one thing about the Eagles, you cannot panic. Right. Play Philadelphia. If you panic and they punch in the gut, they're going to knock you out. And that's going to be all she wrote. I'm not saying the Giants panicked, but down 14-0, that quickly became what? 28-0 whole. 49ers are a different animal. I need to see the first 2 offensive series. If they can move the ball a little bit with success and this kid settles down, if he's got the happy feet, we can both agree. When Purdy starts rolling out or twisting and turning and throwing across his body, that's when you have to kind of go like that, because he's prone to make, that mistake. Now, albeit it's been very limited, so to speak, but man, it's just, the Eagles have been the best team consistently, even when Hurts got injured. I had no issue saying they were the best team in the NFL. I think that's a tough environment they're going into Sunday. If it was 3.5, you would be more comfortable with San Francisco, or are you're back in your play here? It seems like
I'm taking the money line, San Francisco all the way. They were San Francisco before the playoffs started. I picked them to go to the Super Bowl. I'm still going to roll with them to go to the Super Bowl. I won't disagree with you that Jalen Hurts I was a big critic of his. He's even impressed me. I definitely believe he does belong in the MVP race. So I just think that against this defense, he hasn't faced a defense like this all year. I think they're going to rattle him. And I think Kyle Shanahan's really going to come up with a game plan like you saw last year in the wild card game against the Dallas defense. Well, the Dallas team in general. But that first play they had with Jimmy Garoppolo, that first drive, they ran something like 15 plays. I want to say they took 8-9 minutes off the clock. You knew that San Francisco was just going to control the time of possession. If they come out and they do the same thing with the Eagles and they make that defense work, I think that's the perfect game plan for them.
So that means she's played it up.
There you go.
Should have had it on hand before we started. I've been all discombobulated. She's played it up. All right. So you mentioned a couple of the props. Flip side, any props you like with the Eagles?
Eagles, I will actually take the over in AJ Brown receiving yards. I believe it's sitting at 70 right now. AJ Brown was visibly upset on the sideline last week. I believe he only had 3 catches for 22 yards. He's a guy that wears the emotions on the sleeve. He's going to be calling for the ball this game. And I will say the one Achilles heel of the San Francisco is actually their cornerbacks. I think AJ Brown is going to get the majority of Jalen Hurts' targets. So I'm going over with his receiving total.
All right, good play on there, Ally Miielnicki from NBL Nothing But Locks podcast, part of Zensports, joining us on a Thursday edition of BYP with Q. Rich Quinones here. AFC side, oh, my Cincinnati, oh, money line.
I know. I went against Cincinnati for the first time all year last year, and it bit me right in.
Yeah, I don't get that. You got it. Yeah, that's why you back your play. You totally.
I know. I'm never doing that again. I'm never going against them. So you can obviously know that I am 100% on the Bengals this year.
I was really impressed with Burrow. We even talked a little bit about the touches for Mixon as well. Yep. But man, if you're Buffalo, knowing those conditions, why not even try to run the ball? Instead, you have your quarterback dropping back to pass, 40-something odd times, who, oh, by the way, did not play particularly well. You mentioned Brown was very emotional, barking. That's what Diggs was doing. He was basically barking at the franchise quarterback. I mean, that game to me, that first series when they overloaded and played man, and then they overloaded with zone on the other side, and Cincinnati went right down the field and scored. I put my feet up. I knew that was pretty much it. I just got the sense that that was going to be a long day for Buffalo.
I regretted my pick. It was the same thing as watching the Giants the night before. Once the Bengals marched down the field, I said, I know exactly how this game's going to go. And the Bills did everything that I thought they weren't going to do. They proved me wrong. They proved that they didn't bring the momentum with them. They didn't correct their mistakes from the Miami game the week prior. And Rich, let's just look at Josh Allen. You can make a case he regressed in this season compared to last season. And I think losing Brian Daboll as his offensive coordinator really hurts him. I really think so. But after this game, let's go to Buffalo real quick before we focus on the Chiefs and the Bengals. The first thing I said after the game ended was the Bills just lost their window to win the Super Bowl. They are $5 million over the cap just to start the year. They're going to lose a lot of players, especially on defense, guys like Tremont Edwards, Edmonds, Jordan Poyer. They're going to lose a lot of key players, key contributors. I think their window for the next 2-3 years to win the Super Bowl is over.
So excellent point. I mentioned it earlier this week on BYP with Daboll. There's got to be something said that Daniel Jones cut down his turnovers and Josh Allen's turnovers. Now, mind you, they were pretty much the same. But what was more alarming, it was the red zone picks. And I think that has to do with coaching them up, so to speak. So that's an excellent point. The other thing with the window closing, it's hard for me to say it's shut. It's maybe kind of like a crack where you get that little draft come in. Let it play out next year. But if they can't figure out a way to make it work with that talent, you talked about the cap, AFC East, who's to say that, I don't know, maybe Brady's under center for Miami next year. Maybe Rodgers is under center for the Jets. In the we're talking about the AFC East now, are we not? So those are things to consider, and that's for future conversations. But that's just a bad loss. And I know you and I kind of went back talking about the emotional element. I've had this discussion with people. Ultimately, playing for a fallen teammate and the emotion, great. Once the ball is kicked, it wears off. And they looked very unprepared in that game at home, mind you, with the conditions that you would say would favor them. And the quarterback was under duress for most of the game. They couldn't run the ball. That's on coaching. It's a really horrible, horrible loss. And Cincinnati, you have to give them their credit because they went to the Super Bowl last year. They lost it. And now they're a win away from getting back, which is very tough to do. Look, we know where this line's going to go, right? When Mahomes is basically playing a little possum right now, come hell or high water, he's not missing this game. But you do have to add this into the equation. 6:30 kickoff, 6:35. It's going to be cold, right? You get that adrenaline going. Maybe it wears off a little bit. They tape him up, shoot him up. Here you go. His mobility is going to be limited. And I
Yeah.
don't know how much of that factors in your decision in picking this game and betting this game.
Whether or not Mahomes is 100%, even if he was 100%, I'm still back at the Bengals. There's a reason that they're calling it Burrowhead in Arrowhead. Joe Burrow has just owned the Chiefs. There's nothing that can compel me to fade the Bengals going into this weekend. I had picked the Bengals last year to beat the Chiefs. Joe Burrow, again, I went away from him last week. I'm not going to do that again. The guy just plays with ice in it running in his veins. I think he's going to come out. He's going to torch that Kansas City defense, who's been underperforming all year, but they've been helped out by their offense. I think that they're going to use the run game again a lot with Mixon. The Chiefs are very weak against the run. I don't think the Jaguars used it enough with Etienne last week. I'm 100% all over the Bengals on this one. You know it.
But it's like going through a little turnstile. Last week, stay away. No. All of a sudden, welcome back.
No,
Here we
I
go.
made my mistake last week. I'm not doing it again.
And you don't hedge. You said you don't hedge. You won't hedge.
I don't.
Just this line to me, it's almost as though people are teasing you, jump on Cincy. But again, you have to look at from an equation standpoint. Patrick Mahomes we suspect he'll be somewhat limited,
right,
with his mobility. And if I rode Cincinnati last week and they were good to me, I have to be loyal. I have to ride them again. I think I mentioned this with you, so forgive me for repeating myself. I think they're one of the most disrespected teams that we have seen over the last, 5, 6, 7, 8 years with the talent they have and the fact that they went to the Super Bowl last year. No one's given them a chance in hell, but I do like them come Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, even before the season started, I believe if you looked at the futures, they were something like the 8th team favored to reach the Super Bowl after they had just reached the Super Bowl. They still weren't getting respected. So I think this is a big defensive effort for with the Bengals defense. I think it's been a very underrated unit all year. In fact, a prop bet that's a little bit of a stretch. It's a long shot at plus 500, but I think the defense somehow causes a turnover and you see the defense return a pick six or a fumble for a touchdown. Patrick Mahomes, if he's struggling again, he's not going to be able to throw off his back foot as well. So that's a prop bet. It's a little bit of a long shot, but you get good value with it. I'd say the defense scores a touchdown for the Bengals.
How about anything on Kelsey or Higgins, respectively?
That's a tough one to go with. I know that Kelsey's always going to be the number one guy to go with. I don't know how Cincy's going to play them, so I'm kind of fading that. One guy I like for the Bengals, though, is Hayden Hurst. I think that if you look last week, Evan Ingram had some nice catches against Kansas City. So I'm going to go with Hayden Hurst to go over 35 receiving yards. I think that Joe Burrow is going to rely on him a lot, especially if Chase is getting double teamed. So I like Hurst to go over it. I'm honestly staying away a lot of the offensive props for the Kansas City Chiefs, except I do like Harrison Butker, their kicker. I like him to go over the 1.5 field goal totals. Again, if Pat Mahomes is struggling, I think they'll get in the red zone a few times, but they'll come up short. I think Butker gets over 1.5 field goals. So that's my other prop bet.
Why do I think I should sprinkle a couple of units on a Tony anytime touchdown?
I will not bet Tony.
I was trying to set you up for that. But goal line situation, there's going to be a shovel pass somewhere. Yep,
he will. And every time Tony gets the ball, I'll just keep rolling my eyes and just wondering why he was lying about his hamstring for all those weeks. But
but you know what? It's funny you mentioned that, but the reality is this: he was not the right fit for what they're trying to do. Right? I mean, that's just they're trying to get the most out of some of these players. I don't know if this is going to be a high scoring game.
No, I don't think so either. I circled the under on this one as well. It's also, like you mentioned, it's going to be cold. I think that the run games are going to get utilized a lot. So I'm looking at not very low scoring, but I'm definitely looking at the under in it.
All right. Before I let you get out of here, the Jets will go Jets and Miami. Who will be the starting quarterbacks for those two teams respectively when the season starts next year?
Ooh, I actually, you know what? I think Tua comes back. I'm one that I think he should take care of his health. I think he has had too many concussions. but the guy loves football. He loves to play. I think he's going to be the starter again week 1. The Jets front or back page of the New York Post today on the sports section. I'm in New Jersey for the week. They had Aaron Rodgers going there. I don't see that happening. If I'm the Jets, I actually think I could see the Jets winding up with a Derek Carr. I know Derek Carr has been whispered in Houston a lot,
Yep.
but I think that he's going to find a way to the Jets. I think the Jets just really need that bridge for the next few years before they finally go out and try to pick out another one guy in the draft. But I would think Derek Carr is going to the Jets.
I haven't heard one person. That's a great call. I like your line of thinking there. I can maybe even see it at Jimmy G, because they're going to try to trade Lance. They're going to trade Jimmy. And who knows, maybe Brady goes to San Francisco. I just throwing it out there. But have we not seen this before with the Jets? Have we not seen the Jets turn around? Let's get that guy from Green Bay 2008, has the big game against Arizona. He throws 5 touchdown passes. They're 8-3. And then what happens? They spit the bed, and ultimately 22 touchdowns, 22 picks, and he blew up that franchise. And that was Brett Favre, right? So it's like buyer beware, man. Don't go down that rabbit hole. Don't do it. But they're the Jets.
They're the Jets. Are always going to make that mistake.
All right.
Like a little brother.
Yeah. There you go. Exactly. Right down the turnpike. What do you guys have cooking for this week? Obviously, you got Championship Sunday on the Nothing But Locks podcast.
Yep. We'll have a podcast coming out either later tonight or tomorrow. Depends when I get done to editing it. But we will be talking again. We're going to be lamenting the Giants a little bit. We got to put that in there. We weren't able to do a show earlier in the week because I was traveling back to the East Coast. We're definitely going to be heavy analyzing the spreads. Why aren't the Niners favored? Why are the Bengals favored? Robert's going to give us great insight with how the odds makers break that down. We're of course going to give our picks, and we're probably going to do a little game of buy or sell and see which players' prop bets are going to hit this week.
All right. Do you going to hit a little Martell's Tiki Bar over the weekend or what?
That's on my list of one of the ones to visit on Sunday. That or the Sawmill over in Seaside Park. So depends if I want like a big slice of pizza. Then I was
going to say, what's the over and under that you hit 3 of those places all on the same day before kickoff?
I mean, I could definitely go to Martell's for the morning game I'm thinking of West Coast time. I could definitely go to the Martell's for the 3:00 game and then go to just shoot down to Sawmill for the afternoon one. So
there you go. Spoken like a New Jersey native. She is co-host Nothing But Locks podcast, part of Zensports. Give these guys a follow at Zensports at NBL podcast. They're all over the place with the pod, wherever you can find it. These guys do a crazy, ridiculous amount of research, in-depth analysis. It's entertaining. Give it a listen. It's good stuff. All right. After this weekend, we have one more, and then we have to start getting a little college and a little NBA if you're up to it.
Yeah, I already started watching college basketball. It was a nice game last night. UConn and Xavier. I thought UConn would win. They didn't pull it out, but I'm getting into the college basketball mode, getting ready for some March Madness.
That's what that keep it rolling 365. That's what we like to hear. All right, Ally, appreciate you jumping on Thursday edition of BYP.
All right. Thanks, Rich.
You got it.